Most software of any kind uses the hotkey Control-X to delete whatever is currently selected. ZBrush, however, doesn't make it quite so easy. There are a lot of times where it would be nice to simply mask an area of a model or hide part of a model and delete it instantly with a keystroke. As it is now, you have to go through a few steps to actually do that. Let's use a macro and assign it the hotkey Control-X to make ZBrush behave like you would expect any other program to. So let's use this on our Hank model here. And what I want to do is delete the part of his body that's hidden by his pants. So if we go into solo mode, you can see he's got a full body here, but everything below the waist is definitely covered by clothing. So we can go ahead and delete that. Now for this macro, I'm actually going to do something a little bit fancy. I'm going to record the macro on a separate object because there's some things that I want to set up specific for this macro, and you'll see what it is. But I'm going to open up my subtools here, and let's just append a dummy object to record this macro into. And I'll just make a sphere, doesn't really matter what it is. And then we'll go down, put the sphere at the bottom. Let's go ahead and select that. Now what I want to do is give the sphere a couple subdivisions. So I'm going to hit Control D a few times to subdivide it. We can go into our geometry menu here and see it's got 3 subdivision levels. Now the reason I'm doing this is because I want the macro to include the function of deleting lower subdivision levels. And the model I was working on, the Hank model, doesn't have subdivision levels. So the button to delete lower subdivision levels is only visible if the model has lower subdivision levels. Okay, one last thing before we start recording this macro. I want to just mask something off so that the macro has something to work with. Doesn't really matter what it is, just could be a random mess here. That's fine, just holding down Control to paint that. Now let's go up to Macro, New Macro. Remember, ZBrush recommends we hit yes, but we actually always want to hit no here unless we really know what we're doing. All right, now it's recording everything we do. So I'm going to go to Geometry and hit Delete Lower. Now let's go down to Masking and invert the mask. Okay, now let's go to Visibility, and I want to go to Hide PT. So what that's going to do is it's just going to hide whatever isn't masked. Now let's go to Geometry, and let's go to Modify Topology, and delete everything that's hidden. Okay, so that hidden part is deleted. All right, let's go up to Macro and End Macro, and let's go ahead and save it in our ZBrush program folder. So we'll go into Program Files, x86 on a Windows machine, go to Pixel Logic, ZBrush, we'll go to Z Startup, Macros, MISC, and in here, let's just save this as del hidden. All right, let's test out the macro really quick just to make sure everything works. I'm going to hold down Control and just mask off an area. We'll go to Macro, hit del hidden, and there you can see it just instantly deleted whatever was masked. Now this also works with things that you just want to hide. So I'm going to hit Control Shift, click and drag an area to make this selection so everything but this is hidden. And the macro should work just the same. So now everything that was invisible is now deleted. So we know this works good. All right, let's assign a hotkey to this. So I'm going to go to Macro, and with my mouse hovering over del hidden, I'm going to hold down Control, Alt, and click on del hidden. Now we're in hotkey mode. So I'm going to hit Control X, and it gives us a message up in the upper left that says the custom hotkey is assigned successfully. Okay, great. So now let's just do one more test here. I'm going to mask off an area and hit Control X. Perfect. Now we're done with this test subtool. So I'm just going to go into my subtool list here and delete that subtool. And I'm going to Alt click on Hank here and go into solo mode. And let's just zoom in on his lower torso. And what I'm going to do is go into move mode. And I'm going to hold down Control as I click and drag out so I get a mask that just kind of masks off by the shape of the object. And we'll go back into draw mode and just hit Control X. All right, so when we go out of solo mode there, you can see that we're not really missing that body because it was hidden by clothing anyway. Now the great thing about this macro is that it works on a model that has subdivisions or a model that doesn't have subdivisions, because you remember as we were recording that macro, we deleted these lower subdivisions on that sphere. So that's recorded right into the macro. So now You can use Control X to delete something that's masked, even if the model has multiple subdivision levels. I use this macro all the time to select certain polygons or polygroups and then just hit Control X to permanently get rid of any hidden geometry. One last thing I do before I end here is I want to save my hotkeys. So let's go up to Preferences, Hotkeys, and Store. Okay, so now I will have that hotkey every time I start up ZBrush.